January 6th rioters. The Supreme Court has just ruled. Let's get to Shannon Bream. What did they say?
So what they have said is that one of the statutes the Justice Department used to charge hundreds of different January 6 defendants is no good. And that includes President Donald Trump, because he has actually had 2 of these counts against him in the Jack Smith D.C. case against him, that federal criminal case that has been on hold here. So what essentially they say is this statute, which was passed in the wake of Enron, they say it doesn't fit here. He says, given that the subsection was enacted to address the Enron disaster, not some other far-flung set of dangers like what happened just right over here at the Capitol, it is unlikely that Congress responded with such an unfocused and grossly incommensurate patch in English that essentially means that all of these people who were charged under this particular obstruction statute for January 6th, that is no good. The dissent, this is a very interesting vote makeup, because the dissent is actually written by Justice Barrett, and she is joined by Justices Sotomayor and Kagan. She says that Congress did intend for this kind of conduct to be brought under this particular obstruction charge. She thinks the majority got it wrong. But what it means is a big headache for the DOJ and good news for hundreds of January 6 defendants charged under this statute, again, including.
All right. So, hello, everybody. I am attorney Michael Eline. I am an attorney licensed in California and Texas. And I was with BZ Watchdog the other night, and we were covering the debates between Sleepy Joe and Orange Man Bad. And we were just cracking up and having a good time. And then this case came out, and I thought, well, this will be a teachable moment, a learning moment. I can teach some of my audience a little bit about case law and how the sausage factory works. But first, I wanted to say hi to everybody in the sidebar. I don't see BZ today. I know he's got to be fried. He's been pulling a lot of weight around trying to get all this stuff handled to help Caroline and Fort Worth, and then doing all this public records requests. So everybody give me a bunch of ones for BZ. I don't think he's going to join us today. But this will be a really interesting case for us to discuss. I've got the brief pulled up. It's pretty thick. I mean, it looks like it's a couple hundred pages, maybe. I mean, I haven't counted it, but I read the entire brief last night. I broke down some of the issues for you so you could get a better understanding. And we'll go ahead and set it up as like a read along as well. But before I get into it, because we didn't really get a chance to really cover the aftermath of the debates. And since we know that our news media and social media, Zuckerberg and all, Silicon Valley, we know that they're all in the tank for Democrats. So we know we're not going to get a fair, statement about what went down. They're going to say Biden won. He was awesome. And that's what they always do. So, I wanted to let you guys see what the Australians have to think, because I think Aussies are really great. So let's see what the Australians have to say.
Get through it without making enormous mistakes, which is unfortunately what we've been used to seeing over the last 4 years. Well, despite being in hiding for a week at Camp David with an empty schedule so his staff could prepare him for going up against Donald Trump, the moment Joe Biden entered the stage, he shuffled his way to the microphone and he looked like he was in desperate need of assistance.
Adderall.
Now, after just 10 minutes on stage, it appeared as though he was falling asleep at the podium. His eyes were shut for a few moments as if he was going into a micro sleep before suddenly he opened up his eyes and he was back with us again. And he continued to do that throughout the first half of that debate. But that was just the beginning. When Joe Biden started speaking, well, that's when we really got into dangerous territory. He was referencing tax laws and he claimed America has 1,000 trillionaires.
What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America.
Look, I'm not sure if that's the case, Joe Biden, but look, sounds great. And then when he was trying to make more points, it was just more rambling, waffle, and a lot of losing his train of thought.
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Then, when he wanted to make his point about abortion, he just repeated the word period 3 times.
But we are not for late-term abortion, period.
Very strong, Joe Biden. Well done. Now, nearly every journalist and commentator that I caught up with in the lead up to this debate told me that they were expecting a stronger than usual Joe Biden to turn out today due to the amount of time he had to prepare and the amount of assistance that he was getting in the lead up to this debate. But he has failed to do that today. If it somehow wasn't clear before, it is crystal clear now. He is no longer cut out for the top job. Yesterday, I caught up with podcaster Brad Palumbo, who told me the rules of this debate were set up to favour Joe Biden, including a halftime break.
Well, of course they
Well,
were.
we can expect a show, that's for sure. Donald Trump, if he's one thing, is an entertainer. And then Joe Biden has a lot to prove to the American public because a lot of people, including Democrats and independents, are really concerned about his ability to actually do the job of being president. We've seen him glitch and freeze and look confused. We've seen him call out to dead people or non-existent human beings on too many occasions to count during public events or ceremonies. And so he's got the most to prove here. All Trump needs to do, he's up in many polls. He's in a strong position. Trump just kind of needs to not mess anything up, not cause himself any problems, which, you know, with him, he could always say something unexpected. But Biden's the one who I think will really be scrutinized intensely to see, is he up for it?
Apparently, Joe Biden's team have scheduled frequent breaks during his preparation for this debate. They're trying their best to.
So we don't need to get too much more into it. I mean, you can kind of see it's the writing's on the wall, and a lot of people are saying it's going to be Michelle Obama, or it's going to be Gavin Newsom, which would be great because I don't think he would have a chance. I mean, California's lost over 2 million residents. They're all fleeing his secret transitioning in the public schools that he's trying to force on parents, and not allowing parents to know that they're trying to sexualize their kids. And so parents, including my family, have decided we're not going to subject our children to that. It's parents' jobs to rear their children and provide them with proper sexual education, not some public school teacher fresh out of Berkeley or Columbia University with blue hair who likes to burn American flags. We don't like that. So I invite Gavin Newsom to run. I think it would be great. Now, what we're going to talk about today. Oh, you know what? I almost forgot. I gotta say hi to everybody. Hey, Will Rockstar, good seeing you, buddy. Will J Rockstar, and Ralph Riley. I love seeing you, buddy. I should have had you come on today, man. This would have been a fun one. Now tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon, I do plan a little housekeeping before we move on. I do plan on covering the recent Uvalde massacre again. Remember the Uvalde massacre, the school in Texas, where this woman that Chili DeCastro and I were trying to assist before he got locked up. She had rescued her children while the police stood there and tried to pepper spray parents who wanted to rescue their kids. She escaped her handcuffs, hopped the fence, and rescued her kids. And her payment was to get thrown in jail and have Child Protective Services steal her children from her. And so naturally, that made me very angry. Being a dad and being a Marine, I want to go to war when I hear things like that. And if I would have had Chili's help, I think that those charges would have been filed a lot sooner, because we do know one thing: when he raises hell, he gets a lot of exposure. For example, Carolina Fort Worth case. If Chili would have gone down there, it would have been out of control. I mean, a lot of guys went down there, but if he would have gone down there, it would have been a game-changing operation, because all eyes are on Chili. We all know that. Now, oh, hey, cool, Ralph. I'm glad you got to stream it on your TV, brother. That's cool. Hey, Bruce, good seeing you, man. Really nice to see you. Sacramento, Linny says, I don't know how to share this to get more viewers. Well, there's a little thing down there that says, I think share, like a curved arrow. You just click on that, and then it'll give you like a dialog box, and you can just click the link, right? Then just drop that into like a text message to your friends, or throw it up on Twitter, whatever you got to do. But this is a good one for people to watch, because you're actually going to learn a little bit about the law. It won't just be straight comedy today. But basically, just to give you a little rundown before we get into the brief. So January 6th, the run up to January 6th, to the certification of the election, was that we saw, poll workers, bringing in boxes and boxes of ballots from their cars at like 8 a.m, and then telling poll watchers that there's a leak upstairs and then telling them that they have to leave. They're going to stop counting. So they kick out the poll watchers because they're told there won't be any more votes counted for the night. Once they're gone, they immediately go back and start counting votes again. But lo and behold, they pull a bunch of boxes, the ballots out from under a table and start feeding them into the machines. It looks like several times each ballot. And of course, we know that at least half the population thinks voting machines are a scam, but yet, the other party thinks that they're great whenever they win elections. So that's a problem that we're running into, is that a lot of Americans saw that happen with their own eyes, and they didn't believe CNN and all of the Democrat run news media when they said, oh, that was, that's nothing, no big deal. She didn't, they didn't, do fake ballots. Clearly you guys are just a bunch of conspiracy theorists. And then after seeing the debate and seeing like how retarded Joe Biden comes off, a lot of people are trying to figure out how could this guy have ever gotten elected, especially with 80 million votes. And so what ended up happening is, because the American people questioned the election so severely, the January 6th committee was formed in order to run interference. And so what happened, I think the first time in history, the Democrat Party got to choose the Republicans who would be on the committee. And of course, they chose what the Republicans call rhinos, like Liz Cheney. She's basically like an old school conservative Democrat, definitely not a Republican in the nature of the modern Republican Party. And so they went ahead and censored information, refused to release all the video, and only showed things where protesters were out of control, and didn't show the other parts of the video where protesters were trying to help police or even being ushered into the Capitol by police. And so that created a cloud of distrust among many on the other side of the political aisle. And I keep telling you guys, being a libertarian, I'm not taking sides here, but I am telling you, when one side uses these techniques, these unlawful and unjust maneuvers, this overreach against the other side, count on it being used against you. And I believe that cooler heads prevailed in the past, and that's why this didn't happen as much. But we've seen, starting with the Obama administration, a weaponization of far left government employees in these administrative agencies. For example, Peter Strzok, he got illegal FISA warrants and lied to FISA courts, along with Lisa Page, both FBI agents. What was their punishment? To get jobs at CNN. Nothing really happened to them. Same with Liz Lerner, illegally denied at the IRS applications for nonprofits that would have helped raise money for Republicans, another partisan Democrat. So we just keep seeing it happening over and over again with partisan Democrats who work for these administrative agencies. And then we see whistleblowers come out and talk about it, and they're immediately attacked as being radical, right-wing, white racists. So that's where this all starts. So now you have this January 6th. So you have, a refusal by the Democrats to release all the video. They just do selected videos, and then they try to say that it's an insurrection, which would have made it the first unarmed insurrection in the history of this country. And so we know it really wasn't an insurrection. There were a bunch of pissed off people. We know the Capitol Police are also a very far left organization. And we know that Antifa was there in force. And so we don't really know exactly what happened, but we know that the news media framed it to make it look like Donald Trump was trying to overthrow the country. And we saw Zuck and Twitter take down his social media account, where his very last tweet was, I want to remind everybody to be safe and not riot. And of course, that was pulled down so the American people couldn't see it. And then the January 6th committee went ahead and fed this narrative. And so as a result, because all this happened, I'm just trying to give you a foundation. People got really pissed off, including this Fisher guy. And Fisher and a lot of people went to DC to complain about it and speak their minds. They weren't going there with AR-15s. They weren't going there to have a war. And now we know that there were undercover FBI agents that were stoking a lot of this stuff. And that just came out recently. So basically, the American people have been lied to for the past several years. They were lied to about the Hunter Biden laptop. The American people were told by all of these Democrats who work for the government, like at the CIA and the FBI, that it was Russian disinformation. And now we know that laptop was not Russian disinformation. Of course, we already knew that. And so did all those people who lied. They all knew that it was a real laptop. They all knew that his daughter's diary, where she complained about being molested in the shower, was real too. But they'll come out and they'll say it's Russian disinformation. And so the American people are getting fed up with being lied to, and somebody wants some truth. And so I think, and then we saw that even the left-wing press said that had the American people, had the Democrats known that the laptop was real, the laptop story was not Russian disinformation, about 20% less Democrats would have voted for Biden. So it would have been catastrophic for him. So that is the foundation for how this led up to January 6th. A lot of pissed off people. They felt like they were being lied to. They saw the tapes of postal trucks pulling in at like midnight with hundreds of thousands of paper ballots, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Where are all these ballots coming from? And then, of course, we know that the COVID lockdowns made it possible to have this runaway election where we had secretaries of state certifying ballots that weren't even signed, that had the same exact signatures, that had the same exact writing. And then when they had recounts, they just ran the same fake ballots through that already were already on their face fake. So we had a lot of people who were really angry about what happened. And as a result, people went to the Capitol and raised holy hell. And one of them was this Fisher guy. And so we know that Jack Smith and the Democrats, they really wanted to make this election look like it was legitimate. So the way they did it was to try and attack and destroy anyone who disagreed with the results, literally even criminally charge them. And that's what really happened. And so we know from some of the released tapes of this event, which I'm going to try to find some, that they weren't just all a bunch of crazy people trying to storm the Capitol. And I'm just going to show you some stuff really quick, just so you can see, because all this stuff was hidden from the American people by the January 6th committee, by Cheney. So let's take a look at it.
Like our First Amendment allows, gather more Americans under the condition that they will come and gather peacefully to discuss what needs to be done to save our country.
This is a show. You understand? To show us no attacking, no assault, remain calm.
We're not going to assault. We're going to be heard. Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This has to be peaceful. We have the right to peacefully assemble.
All right. So we were told for the last 2 years by the jackboot thug Leviathan press, the far left Marxist run press, the UCLA, USC press, that this was this violent insurrection and these people were wielding AR-15s and they were causing all this trouble. And to be sure, that did happen. And we know that Antifa was there pretending to be Trump supporters. So we don't know exactly what happened, but we know that they were definitely there in force. And the video that we're now seeing that was hidden from the American people over the last several years is showing all these people they tried to portray as violent, crazy people. And yeah, surely they're crazy. Look at this guy. He looks like a complete nut job. But they weren't, not all of them. The vast majority of them were saying we need to be peaceful. And the cops are right there saying, yeah, just be peaceful. It's all good. You can be here. Just be peaceful. So I just wanted to, again, lay a further foundation, because you've been lied to so much by the for-profit media, the Soros, BlackRock funded media, the Jeff Bezos funded and controlled media, the bankster controlled media, that you're not really getting the truth. And so that's why I always encourage you guys, watch my show, like and subscribe, hit that like and subscribe button. But also, everybody needs to start doing their own research and building parallel systems so this won't happen again. So your government can't lie to you and create false narratives and try and create division amongst the people. You should be smart enough to do your own research and engage in critical thinking. Now, Miss Constitutional Rights, super happy to see you. I hope that you see my flag there, Miss Constitutional Rights, in the background. We saw that somewhere else previously, I believe, in the yard of a Supreme Court justice. I think it was also flying upside down too. So Miss Constitutional Rights, this one's for you. Now I'm going to get into this case a little bit with you now to kind of explain things to you like a lawyer would. And I understand that not all of you are capable of thinking like a lawyer. And I get it. And I'm not mad at you. I don't want you to have to think like a lawyer unless you want to learn. but I am going to teach you a little bit about how this works. So this dude Fisher got charged with a crime, and so the FBI and the DOJ wanted to come up with additional charges to get Trump with, and they used this old Enron case to say that these people went to the Capitol to engage to try and prevent the election from being certified, and as a result, they engaged in obstruction under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. And this is a statute that imposes criminal liability on anyone who corruptly alters, destroys, mutilates, or conceals. Right here, I'll just light it up for you. A record, document, or other object. You follow me so far? All right. And with the intent to impair the object's integrity or available for use in an official proceeding. And so the majority of the court said, well, no, these people weren't there to try to impair the document's integrity, and under 18 USC sub C sub 1. Now, the next section extends the prohibition to anyone who otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so. That's 1512 sub C sub 2. So what the Democrat prosecutors are trying to say is that that's a catch-all. And that means the fact that they were there alone, that makes it enough that they were there to obstruct an official proceeding and prevent documents from being certified. And it was based on this Enron case where the CEOs were encouraging their employees to destroy documents, but they didn't destroy the documents themselves. So as a result, a law was passed to make sure the CEOs would be held accountable later. Now, the Supreme Court justices didn't buy it. But interestingly enough, Amy Coney Barrett joined the two far left liberal judges, Kagan and Sotomayor, and we'll talk about that in the end as well. But it's a really interesting case, and it just shows you that judges are people too, and they will vary from their normal political ideology sometimes if they feel that they're onto something. So that's an interesting thing to notice about the Supremes. Now, Salingari 69 says Apple and Alphabet run online. Yeah, they do. And they're all far, far left, and they're in bed with the communist Chinese. And honestly, they look up to and they revere the communist Chinese, as do many American politicians who go there. They go to China, they hook them up with girls, kind of like they did with Hunter Biden. They basically make them into communist Chinese assets. Remember, was it either Barbara Boxer or Dianne Feinstein had a communist Chinese government official as her limousine driver for 20 years, a spy. And then there was that other guy, Swalwell, sleeping with a communist Chinese spy. We know they've infiltrated our university system. We know that many college professors have been caught receiving illegal funds like gold and silver from the communist Chinese. And we know that a lot of American colleges are run by Antifa. We know that college professors now, a lot of them are Antifa leaders. And that all ties in with the Confucian Society and what China wants to do, which is destroy the fabric of America. And so along with BlackRock and Soros, they're flooding the country with illegal aliens and even letting illegal aliens become law enforcement officers now, believe it or not. So we're seeing a major sea change in the way the United States and the way the makeup of the population is. They're saying that more illegals came into the country under Biden in the last few years than actually people that were birthed in the United States. So as the government pushes alternative sexual lifestyles on children and complain about children no longer reproducing when they grow up, they're replacing us with people from third world countries who literally came here for free stuff. And so, again, this is another reason why people were protesting and rioting during January 6th. And so in this particular case, this is what we call government overreach. Petitioner Joseph Fisher was charged with violating 1512 sub C sub 2. And that was because they wanted to hold the otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes proceeding as a basis to charge him with 2 additional crimes under 18 USC. So basically the Supremes said, well, the purpose of C2 is, as the parties agree, to cover some set of matters not specifically contemplated by C1. Okay, so it was basically supposed to like catch anything that C1 missed, but it had to catch the same type of behavior. So because of that, they looked at the principles of the otherwise provision. And since it is limited by a list of specific criminal violations itself, since it's already limited by a set of specific criminal violations itself, see if I can find this. I'll just read this to you. Since it's limited, it can't cover anything beyond what the original intent was. And so as a result of that, the Supremes threw it out. Now, the dissenters were Justice Barrett, and she wrote the dissenting opinion. So I'll roll that right now down there. And so a dissent really doesn't have any, it doesn't really do much for the case, just so you guys know. A dissent basically is something that you could potentially use later when you look at a case like, you know, Roe versus Wade. The dissent, the original dissent in Roe versus Wade played a role in getting Roe versus Wade overturned years later. A lot of those same arguments were used. I'm just trying to find her. So you can see her dissent, and it's pretty lengthy. And so what ended up happening is the 2 other female justices went ahead, Sotomayor and Justice Kagan, joined Justice Barrett. And I invite you to go to the description of this video, and you can go ahead and go to the description in my video here, and you can click on the links and you can open up the brief and check it out yourself. But the bottom line is this really going to help anybody? Because Donald Trump also got charged with this obstructing thing. So that's all going away. But, you know, like any prosecutor, they charged not just, you know, obstructing official proceedings. They charged a bunch of stuff, you know, trespassing or whatever else they could come up with against these guys. The problem is that the for-profit news media and the Democrats in majority control Congress really did a number on all those defendants. And public opinion went against them, that they're rioters, that they're trying to overthrow the country. They've been severely mistreated in jail. They've been kept in solitary confinement in these tiny little cells, and they've been abused, bread and water, punished beyond anything you could ever imagine, like worse than stuff that you would see over at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Just, it's absolutely a disgrace. I know this because I do criminal defense, and I have connections within the DC system, and I have clients in Texas who are directly affected by this. And I'm just telling you right now, this really, really scares me that the government, just one political party, can weaponize the news media with their corporate buddies in Silicon Valley and destroy people's lives and keep them in jail, even without a hearing, for years at a time, based upon a bunch of bullshit charges. And this happens a lot, but it's happening more and more. And we see the far radical Leviathanic part of our government, the ones that don't believe in natural law, the ones that are always going over to hang out with the World Economic Forum. We see those guys pushing really, really hard to push this fake narrative and to get the unionized jailers, the unionized prisons, to hurt anybody who doesn't support their political ideology. And it reminds me exactly of the Communist Chinese Cultural Revolution. Give me a bunch of ones if you see that too. Right down to the point, to the part of getting rid of gender. Remember, in Communist China, they wanted to eliminate all forms of gender expression. So, you know, they had women cut their hair short, tried to pretend like they're men, and, you know, they all had to, it was unisex. And we see the same exact thing happening right now being pushed on our college campuses, in the public school system. And it reminds me of Mao's little red book revolution. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. So the big problem that we have here is now we have this system where the government is constantly asking,
where are your papers, Mav? Where are they?
Oh, you don't have any papers? Choose a consequence and come with you.
And that's a real problem. You know, you've got government employees constantly demanding to know, where are your papers? You know, and now it's super easy for them to get domestic warrants, FISA warrants. We just found out that on March 4th, Congress, some brave people in Congress, because of a few whistleblowers who have been harassed by our government, we found out that our own FBI has been illegally spying on us by using metadata from this fake, like, private corporation partnership that they have, where they can use a private company to circumvent the Fourth Amendment, right? To get all your user data and your metadata from the banking systems and then mine it to see if you purchased a gun, to see if you purchased a Bible. Because if you did, you're a potential domestic violent extremist. And the same thing happened under the Obama administration. Almost within months of Obama being elected, we saw that anybody who'd served in the military was automatically on the list of potential domestic violent extremists. So we've seen a consistent targeting of people who are in the military because they know that people in the military tend to support the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And that seems to be the enemy of the new Leviathanic single party system like we have in California, for example. So that's kind of what we're seeing. Now, I just wanted to play you some more footage from the debate because it's just so fun.
What's happened? I've changed it in the way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border legally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
What more illegals?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country.
It's true.
That $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of them, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out.
Wait, I got an idea. How about stop flooding our country with illegal aliens and giving them free everything in expectation of redistricting everything with the census so that you'll have a single party system, and instead play fair and send them back home. Stop giving them free everything. Build the wall and have a legal immigration system. How does that sound, guys? Give me a bunch of ones. People could come here legally. They could study American history, learn about American culture, learning about pledging allegiance to the flag. But instead, they're bringing them up here, and it looks like Chicago, New York, they're just trying to make them cops. I mean, look at the problem we have with our law enforcement already. So you're going to take a bunch of people from third world countries. A lot of them could be prisoners. We know that Venezuela basically dumped all their prisons, and just like they did in Cuba back in the 80s, flooded our country with these people that are going after our women. And we know that that's absolutely happened. So instead of doing that to try to get votes and to try to redistrict so you can have more representation in government, so you can, make yourself more powerful, why not stick up for the American people who have to pay for all this stuff? Give me a bunch of ones if you think that's a better idea.
His debt, we'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. And just 1 second, he said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying, and also killing our citizens when they come in.
Yeah, well, Orange Man's mRNA is responsible. It left a lot of deaths in its wake too. So, I can cast stones at both houses here. We lost a family member and several friends from thrombosis, pericarditis, myocarditis, all known side effects that the pharmaceutical industry, in league with your politicians, tried to bury for like 50 or 75 years. They didn't even want you to know about the side effects. That's how ridiculous it is. Now we know that Ken Paxton is trying to sue pharma. Only state governors have the ability to pierce their immunity. A lot of you guys don't even know that pharmaceutical companies under Reagan got immunity from being sued for their own negligence. The only way they can be sued now for negligence is if a state attorney general finds a way to administratively open that up for you to be able to sue them. So it's just a total racket. They give billions of dollars to social media, to the news media, to all these politicians. None of the information you're getting is right. We know they fund the NIH. So how can you trust any documents from somebody who's getting a royalty payment from the pharmaceutical industry? It's ridiculous. So we just see all this corruption everywhere. And a lot of people are really, really upset. And I agree with a lot of the people in the sidebar. Who do you vote for? Like, what's your, what are you going to do? The only thing I can tell you guys is I'm very, very happy with Trump's Second Amendment situation with the justices. If it wasn't for that, if Hillary would have gotten in, I guarantee you wouldn't be able to own an AR-15 anymore. And if you did, it could only have like 1 round, to make it fair. You can only put 1 bullet in it, that kind of thing. Like, because they want to make it like Australia. Obama even said that he wants to have the same gun laws in America that they have in Australia. And of course, we know that he's the king of the Democrat Party, and he's the one who controls the White House today. At least that's what a lot of people are saying. So basically, I just wanted to, that's right. That's right. So in the sidebar here, we have Salon Gray 69 saying that Zucker was loaded with pharma med bucks. That's right. And we saw, they were scared, right? Because people started dropping dead. And, we know that their recommendations to like put people on respirators who have fluid in their lungs is ridiculous. That's going to kill them, right? And we know that they were fudging their numbers. They were saying that anyone who came to the hospital for any reason, if they also had the symptoms of COVID, that's a COVID-related death. And so they're just blasting these figures through the roof. We know now that it was about the same mortality rate as the flu, but a lot of my friends who are lawyers went bankrupt during that period. It really hurt our law firm. I mean, when you shut down the economy, when a bunch of scumbag politicians shut down the economy and help all their friends at Amazon and the delivery business make money and then destroy your life, it definitely hardens you against all this immunity and stuff. So just trying to give you, some basic insight of what's going on and why people are so upset. Now, with respect to this particular case at hand, the Joseph Fisher case, it's probably not going to have any kind of a marked effect on the other criminal charges against other defendants. It was really mainly just being used as a political bludgeon to try to make it look like there was an insurrection, that they're trying to interfere with an official proceeding. It's just basically like like most of the trials that we've seen with Trump, like a political show trial. I mean, I get so many calls and emails from people saying, Mike, are there any cases against Trump where a non-Soros, non-far left Marxist prosecutor brought the charges? And I can tell you with beyond a reasonable degree of certainty that no, this is they've all been political persecutions. And so that just makes a martyr out of Orange Man. And you can see that, especially with black males, they're all in for Trump now. So you can just tell that the campus culture mentality of the people running this particular administration, they've never read a history book. You don't make martyrs out of your political opponents. You just don't do it. And I don't know what's going to happen. A lot of the people in the sidebar think that the voting machines are a scam. They don't trust the elections, and they think that they can just feed a bunch of fake ballots in there like they were doing in Georgia and stuff, Pennsylvania, and just keep getting away with it because the Democrat secretaries of state will just keep certifying it. But I can tell you guys that if you really want to make change in this country, you should start protesting against these voting machines. There's no reason to have them. We know that a lot of times there's a lot of money involved. The governor of the state will sign a huge contract, billion-dollar contracts with these companies that have the voting machines. And of course, the governor has a vested interest in getting reelected. And, think about that. I mean, come on, guys. We should not have these voting machines. We should go back to a paper ballot. Poll watchers shouldn't be kicked out like they were last time, and they shouldn't be covering up windows with cardboard. I mean, obviously that they're doing something nefarious. That's the appearance that it gives. Only CNN and MSNBC seem to think that was okay. And we know that they're definitely not right-wing Republican news agencies, right? They're basically just the propaganda wing of the Democrat Party, according to many. So a lot of people are just complaining. They're not getting the whole story. But for all of you purists who think that, all these charges are going to go away and that the Supreme Court's going to come to the rescue of Donald Trump and the Jan 6ers, I hate to tell you guys, that's not going to happen. These political persecutions will continue until the FBI, DOJ, and CIA leadership is completely replaced. Right now, you have a bunch of far-left political operatives that run these agencies, and you can clearly see, based upon their targeting of parents, Christians, gun owners, people who shop at Dick's Sporting Goods and Cabela's, that until there is a new political change, that you will continue to be targeted. I mean, I guarantee you the people watching my channel are probably being targeted. I'm pretty sure I'm being watched just for having an open mind and trying to present the news from a neutral point of view outside the scope and control of what California wants. For example, Gavin Newsom wants to have a disinformation board. They actually have one now where they get to decide what truth is. They get to decide what's false. I mean, for example, they have Harvey Milk Day. We know that Harvey Milk was a child abuser, serial child abuser. So what does California do? They dedicate a day to him. So, that's what you got. That's what you're left with, guys. I'm sorry to tell you that. If you love your children, you probably don't want to live in California. Now, I'm just going to look in the sidebar, and then we're probably going to call it a day because I'm tired, guys. But I am going to join you guys tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about Uvalde and what's happening with the chief, the school massacre there. I Am God. It's good seeing you. And I Am God says, funny how tough on crime Trump is, unless it's thin blue line, gangsters, or himself. And, I hear that a lot too, man. Apparently he's saying that he wants to give more immunity to law enforcement. And that just makes me sick to my stomach, because we see that already they're trying to make illegal aliens cops, and people who don't even know anything about our Constitution. They're not from here. Just think how easy they'll be to weaponize against you. It'd be like having the United Nations troops in the U.S. They have no ties. They have no familial relations. They'll have no problem squeezing the trigger against you. I'm just telling you, that's where this is headed, guys. We see it happening in Europe too. They basically replaced most of the natives with people from countries that hate them, military-aged males dedicated to Islamic jihad, and they're just flooding their country with these people. So we see the same thing happening with our southern border. Since Joe Biden set aside and reversed Donald Trump's executive orders for illegal aliens to shelter in place, and ever since Donald Trump's executive order to deny the ability of illegal aliens to be counted in the U.S. Census for purposes of redistricting and adding more representatives, ever since Biden reversed those two policies, we've had over 20 million illegal aliens, probably more, come into this country. We don't know if they're vaccinated. We know now that a lot of them are rapists and murderers, set free from prisons in countries like Venezuela. I know from having visited El Salvador several times that we've got Antifa-looking guys with hammer and sickle flags on their backpacks going around handing out free cell phones to basically peasants who are begging for money and telling them you can join a caravan. We'll help you avoid all the obstacles. We'll give you food. We'll give you clothing. Once you get to the United States, we'll tell you how to lie to the immigration judge. We'll tell you how to get into a hotel for free and get free food. And that's all they're looking to do is redistrict. This is all about redistricting and winning elections. They don't care about these illegal aliens. They could care less about them. And they don't care about you either. I mean, because your tax dollars are paying for all that. We have no idea who these people are. So, and yeah. So Stacy Parenti says we're already there. I know, it's really scary. And you see it, you know, in California, especially. You go down to San Diego and you'll see like these Nigerian dudes, like literally trying to take a bath in like the water work things in front of hotels, you know, the little waterfall. They'll just sit there and get a bar of soap and try to wash themselves. The police don't do anything. They're totally outmanned. And it's just happening more and more. And there's children involved, you know, seeing this stuff. And it's just not the America that you really want your wife and kids to grow up in. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree with that. Now, so I can see that I am God and misconstitutional rights are arguing. All I can say is, guys, I really ask you, people who come on my channel, this is a nonpartisan, other than we don't support the deep state or the administrative state. We support natural law and natural law theory. I don't care if you're a Democrat, you're a Republican. I don't care who you are. If you believe in the concepts of natural law, John Locke's natural law, then that's why you're here. And I don't want you guys disparaging each other, putting each other down, Trump this, Trump that, Biden this, Biden that. I'll present both sides. You guys can have your political beliefs. But when you're here, just try to look at it like we're exposing the corruption on both sides, because we know that it exists in both parties. No one's free from guilt. I just want you guys to be able to get along like we used to. Like when I was growing up, it didn't matter if you were a Republican or a Democrat. You still pledged allegiance to the flag. You loved America. I know now that I guess a lot of Democrats like to burn flags and wave rainbow flags around. And I guess that's what a lot of people in the sidebar are upset about. They're like, yeah, well, I won't argue with you or fight with you, but you don't even love America. You're like trying to force all this sexuality on our school kids. And that, but I hear people talking back saying, no, I'm a conservative Democrat. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm just staying with the party because I'm hoping that I can change the dynamics of the party. But the problem with that is, guys, it's people at BlackRock and these perverts that work for these large corporations that are pushing this stuff. And I think we all know why. And it's two words: Epstein Island. Because if they can get the child abuse laws changed with the very favorable Congress they have right now, if they can get the statutes changed, get the age of consent lowered, they'll be able to retroactively save the hundreds upon hundreds of FBI agents and employees, CIA agents and employees, government employees and government politicians who regularly went to Epstein Island. And I believe that that is what's really going on. I believe that this is just a way to try and protect all those scumbags who were regularly getting down with little kids at Epstein Island. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. And that is true. So Cake Graham says the Haitians are filling up their grocery carts with food and walking out of the grocery store without paying. That's right. And they don't arrest them. And beyond that, Cake, because I have a lot of friends who live in Florida, the Haitians overwhelmingly have tuberculosis. And what do they primarily do for work? They get jobs as short order cooks. So I just want you guys to be aware that I'm all about legal immigration. I'm all about letting people come here once they know about America, once they have taken a class, they've learned about the Bill of Rights, they understand property rights, they understand that the government's not there to give you handouts. Handouts are something that are done, they're supposed to be done as a part of a social safety net. But instead, the far left is inviting people up here, just giving them free everything, just saying, hey, just make sure your kids and your offspring always vote D. And the people in the sidebar are furious about that because it's cheating, right? Isn't that cheating, guys? Like just flooding the country with a bunch of people that shouldn't even be here with your and my money to replace us. And that's the problem that people are having. And so this January 6th case is a direct result of the unhappy people of America. At least half the population doesn't believe that this election was valid. And when they saw the news media and the poll watchers being kicked out and the news media covering for them, we saw them pulling out boxes of ballots under tables after they kicked out poll workers on closed circuit TV. After the ballots are already counted, they see post office diesel trucks pulling up loaded with boxes, and all of a sudden the vote count changes a couple hours later by several 100,000. People don't trust that. People are not confident in our voting system. They don't believe in vote by mail. A lot of the people are complaining to me, look, the U.S. Post Office is basically a branch of the Democrat Party. I mean, if you could find somebody who even works for the post office who votes Republican, it probably belongs in the Guinness Book of World Records. And so we know that the Republicans have been trying to shut down the post office for years. So you honestly think that these people aren't going to engage in election interference to try to make sure they keep their jobs? Really? Think about that. We have post office workers constantly getting busted for stealing things. One got busted right during the election in a liquor store in Torrance, California. He had hundreds of mail-in ballots in the passenger seat of his car. And we know that a lot of these people like him were just dropping hundreds of them at a single drop location where it's a felony to drop more than one. And you see it on TV where they're dropping like 50, 60, and the government didn't do shit. In fact, Biden gave the one woman who pulled the boxes of ballots out from under the table a Presidential Medal of Freedom. So what does that signal? It signals to all the poll workers, keep it up, keep doing shady shit because we're going to reward you. And so being a Marine and being somebody who believes in being honest and having integrity, that makes me sick. And so that's why I thought I would cover this for you guys today, show you the reasoning and the underpinnings behind the January 6 cases, why the people were upset, and then show you the way the government tried to charge them with an old Enron violation, basically saying, oh, you were trying to interfere with an election count certification, and therefore, it's additional, life in prison or whatever they're trying to get to send a message. But it's basically the communist Chinese methodology, the East German, KGB, Stasi, a mentality where you punish your enemies and reward your friends. And we see this Eastern European style or Mexican pre-party style from the 80s, full force in our federal government. And people my age are just shaking their heads and they're really upset. So many of you will score this as a win for Mr. Fisher. And obviously it is. But a lot of these guys are still in solitary, being fed bread and water, not allowed to see their legal counsel, and on trumped up charges. And the news media has effectively destroyed them the way that the frauditors destroyed Chile de Castro. And so when you unlawfully lock someone up and use trumped up charges, and if the public has been trained not to like that person, they'll go along with it. And this is a tradition that the French keep repeating. Remember when they killed their king and Robespierre came into power in the Great Terror, we saw what happened there. So, you end up just ripping your country apart. And that's why I always share with you guys, be very careful about this political targeting. If you're a Republican, you better not try to get revenge. You better just leave it alone. And for you Democrats who are engaged in all this like old school Soviet style Marxism, political targeting, you got to stop, guys, because you're going to end up getting people like a Trump, who's a crazy man, and he'll weaponize his agencies against you. And what's going to happen is the American people are the ones who are going to suffer, because we're not going to have any faith at all. And we already have very little faith in our justice system. And, having a partisan far left Democrat run FBI and CIA, all that does is basically cause the other half of the country not to trust the agency. And so I just wanted to share that with you, because I think it's really important that if we're going to have a government, that we have neutral people in charge who are trustworthy. It's super, super important. You cannot have partisan Republicans or Democrats who have an axe to grind. What we need is some kind of a neutral system, and we need to elect people who believe in deleting laws. And that's why I think the name Delete Laws is an appropriate channel for Chile's channel, because we should be voting people into office based upon the laws that they'll delete, not based on passing more laws. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Now, hey, BZ Watchdog, OTVO, I love it. And then Miss Constitutional Rights says they don't get their facts and it's killing more people. Well, she could be talking about fact checkers. And of course, we know that fact checkers are basically partisan Democrats who will take a article that someone wrote that is critical towards their political opponents, make up a set of facts that don't even exist in the article. And then they'll say it's fake. And then they'll use that as a basis to ban you from Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. And that's a violation of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And we'll have a conversation about that at another date. But we can just see it's happening, man. The political targeting, the weaponization of our government agencies, I believe is worse than it's ever been. You see the campus culture crusaders from like Harvard and Yale coming into these government agencies like FBI and bringing that campus culture. You have to silence your political opponents. Oh, you're a racist if you believe in the Second Amendment, or you're a bigot if you don't think school teachers should have the right to sexualize your kindergartner. And so a lot of American people are very, very upset about that because it's un-American to them. And so to the younger crowd that believes in Marxism and leftism, and they've been brought up that way, you think it's totally normal to silence your political opponents and lock them up and put them on bread and water because that's how the people that your professors looked up to think, because they look up to Joe Stalin. They look up to Che Guevara. They look up to Fidel Castro. They look up to Slick Willie. They look up to all these guys. So that's what your kids are being taught. And so the political targeting for them is just normal. But as we see what happened with the French under Robespierre, ultimately they ate themselves. And so, they say the Marine Corps eats their own. Well, it happens with every organization. But ultimately, when you're chopping off the heads of everybody you disagree with, those other people think their heads are coming off next, and they're going to revolt because they don't have anything to lose at that point. So, Let's OTVO, thanks for coming again, buddy. And and that's another problem too. If you vote for a party that believes that they have the right to constantly harass you and ask you questions like, I don't know, let's see here. Like,
where are your papers, Mav? Where are they? Oh, you don't have any papers?
So yeah, if you want to have somebody like that running the country, just keep on voting for the party that's in power now, because I guarantee you're going to be asked for papers. Now, the problem is, like BZ Watchdog says, Trump wants to give more immunity to police. And obviously that's a deal breaker for me. Law enforcement in America is out of control, and they're making illegal aliens police now. And these are people who have no idea about our Bill of Rights. They don't know what natural law is. A lot of them came from countries where it's normal for the police just to slice you open with a machete. If you've ever been down to Central or South America, the cops down there are tyrants, worse than what we have here by far, and heavily driven by bribery. And so now we're bringing all those people with that mentality. They haven't been trained in honesty and decency. They haven't been trained in the Bill of Rights. They don't know anything about our country, our heritage, as Englishmen, nothing. And they're coming up here and they're making them cops. And so if Trump tries to give them more immunity, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's just a real problem. So, and I know I got a lot of people who are big time Trump supporters. And all I can say is, I definitely was impressed by the Second Amendment court decisions that came out, and me being pretty much a single issue voter. That's all I really wanted, because I know I can't expect much more from our government. We're $75 trillion in debt. Donald Trump is basically a liberal Democrat anyways. He governed like a Democrat other than a few things. He was a tax and spend liberal. And I don't see any real difference. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys do. Give me a bunch of twos if you think that Donald Trump was basically like a conservative Democrat, like maybe a Kennedy Democrat, something like that. Probably didn't get as many chicks as Kennedy illegitimately, or didn't harass as many women as Kennedy. But then again, Kennedy owned the news media, being a Democrat, whereas since Trump ran as a Republican, he lost all the protection of the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party, aka the modern day news media. So now Miss Constitutional Rights says that Trump said he's going to punish the bad ones several times. And I've heard that, but if you make qualified immunity easier to get for officers, that's a problem. And only the courts can decide what kind of punishment an officer gets. And that's going to be based on legislation. So I'd have to see Trump's legislation to give you a better idea, but I'm not here trying to trash him or anything like that. I know that you really like him and I get it. And I appreciate what he did for the Second Amendment. I'm not going to lie. No man is a God. And so we just have to start thinking that way. You know, these are human beings, and a lot of them are driven by pride and narcissism, especially if you're running for government. So that's just how it's going to be. Now, Salina Girl 69 says that Clockwork Orange had criminals released and turned into cops. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know, all these criminals that are sneaking across our border, they're letting them become cops. They are criminals. They're in violation of U.S. law. They're not supposed to be here. And the people who are bringing them here are nonprofit corporations that are funded by BlackRock and your tax dollars, directly or indirectly. They're the ones bringing them up here. So that should, you know, if you really want to make change, stop buying stuff from those corporations. Stop going to Disneyland. Why would you bring your kids to Disneyland anyways? I mean, I wouldn't want my kids going to some drag show at an amusement park. Would you? Doesn't make any sense. Why don't they send those drag queens to an old people's home? Why do they have to be around like 2-year-old kids? It just doesn't make any sense. Now, so Race Gas, thanks for saying absolutely. Kurt Bronson, I love that. I love your laugh, man. Jody Shiloh, thank you again for coming. BZ Watchdog, thanks for showing up again too, brother. I'm going to go ahead and close this bad chicken out, but I just want you guys to take a look at the description of the video. I did put a link to the Supreme Court decision of Joseph Fisher versus the United States. I did put a link up on there for you to look at the case. I invite you to take a look at it. And if you have questions about it, you know, maybe we can talk about it in another episode. My goal for tomorrow is to come on and talk about what's going on in Uvalde, Texas, with the police apparently getting criminally charged for letting that gunman massacre those kids and not taking any efforts. And again, I was working with Chile to go and help the woman who had her children stolen by Child Protective Services and who was forced to spend time in jail because she rescued her kids. And the Uvalde police decided that that wasn't a good thing. And so they threw the book at her. And so she's living in a garage now. That's the last time I heard about her. And so I just want you guys to know those are the kinds of things that make me happy. Being able to help the less fortunate and being able to offer assistance in righteous causes, like where a woman's lost her children, stuff like that really gets me pissed. It really makes me upset because kids really need their moms. And of course, all boys need a dad, but no matter what, man, the kids need their mother. Super important. Now, tomorrow night, I don't know what time I'm going to be on. Selena girl, I could try to come on maybe around like 3 or something. I would say Pacific, but it'll just be a cool show. And I'm going to try to get this Texas cop to come on, or is a former cop who lives in Texas, to come on and help me sort of break down what's going on, because we know it's very, very rare with all the immunities the police have that they would get some kind of a criminal charge for failing to protect the kids. So this is going to be a really hot item for us to cover. And it's one of the first times in my lifetime that I've really seen police being held accountable in a big way at the upper level. And so I really, really want you guys to cover the story. And if anybody can help me find the mom, you know, Chili, when he gets out, we're going to go visit her and we're going to raise hell at the police department. And I would just love it if we could find her and talk to her a little bit. You know, maybe we could do some fundraisers for her. It's not really being covered on the press anymore, but for me, I'll always hold that woman in the highest regard. I have utmost respect for her. And man, if I wasn't married, I'd be chasing her down, trying to see if I get a date, because that's the kind of woman you want, man. Straight up. That is a legit woman. So yeah, something like that, Selena girl. I'll notice it in advance, but I hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. It looks like we got, you know, about 100 people in here, which isn't bad for a Saturday for some lawyer who's not really a celebrity or anything. But I hope you guys like the show. I like to always share this stuff with you from as obviously as neutral of a point of view as I can. But I do have my biases, as you know. I'm pro-America, and I hate it when people ask me stupid shit like this.
Where are your papers, Mav? Where are they? Oh, you don't have any papers? To the Context come with you.
I just love that, man. So anyways, guys, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. And I'm going to just say goodbye to everybody. Good seeing you, Katie Frizzle. Thank you for joining us. Let's OTVO. Give me a bunch of Let's OTVOs and OTVOs in the sidebar. Give me a bunch of ones for Chili de Castro. Give me a bunch of FCs for free chili, free chili, free chili. Let's see it. Let's see it. Throw them out there for me, guys. And Will J. Rockstar, Mal, thank you. Show me your papers. And Kurt Bronson, thank you. Yeah, hit that like button. Hit that like and subscribe button. And I hope you guys found that I wasn't partisan. I hope that you found that this was a neutral and educational experience. I just want to do a little Joe Biden imitation for you, and that you learned something today. And I hope that you understand that although it does appear to be quite a victory, these people are still facing a lot of other charges, and I believe most of them are bogus, trumped up garbage. A lot of political based charges. We've seen the weaponization of our government agencies against Republicans and conservatives and Christians and white males in particular. And that report was released, I believe, on March 4th by Congress, the illegal spying operation on your metadata. If you buy Bibles, if you purchased a firearm at Cabela's or Dick's, you're on their list. So keep in mind that the party that did that next time you cast your vote, because I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. When somebody does that kind of stuff, that makes them Lucifer. That makes them Satan, and they're no longer a human being. We have unalienable rights, and we have a right not to be judged or persecuted by tax-funded lackeys who maybe just went to some far-left institution and got some degree that's worthless from some serial plagiarizer law professor. And that doesn't fly with me. It doesn't fly with the people in my sidebar. So, again, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Semper Fi, do or die. All right. That is it, baby.